faces tonight. Thank you for coming. Since you weren't here at our last meeting, we announced that, this is a new council and we have kind of a new agenda. In that after the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to remain standing and take 15 seconds of silence. This is a time that was established during the framing of the Constitution to be a reminder to transcend petty differences and to express a common aspiration for a just and peaceful society. So that's what we'll do. May we stand?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Chad Melinda.
Here.
Bill Meyer.
Present.
Ryan Hartley.
Here.
Ethan Maple.
Here.
And Terry Reed.
Here. Okay, public comments, 3 minutes limit on the agenda topics only. Okay. Claims. Is there a motion to approve APVs number 26047 through 26122?
I will make a motion to approve APVs number 26047 through 26122.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. The motion is moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion has been carried to approve APVs number 26047 through 26122. Okay. Adoption of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the town council minutes from January 24th, 2024?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
The motion is moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? All approved, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried to approve the town council minutes from January 24th, 2024. Next is there a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes from January 24th, 2024?
I move that we approve those minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion is moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried to approve the executive meeting minutes from January 24th, 2024. Old business, resolution number 020724, donation of surplus police vehicle to the school corporation. Is there a motion to approve resolution 020724? Donation of surplus police vehicle to the community school corporation of Southern Hancock County.
I'll make that motion
I will
to
second.
approve it. I'll say all the things, but make the motion.
Thank you. Motion is moved and seconded. Is there a discussion?
Who seconded? Thank you, Chad.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The motion is carried to approve resolution number 020724, donation of surplus police vehicle to the school corporation.
Madam President, just for point of clarification, that will be addressed by the school board at their Monday meeting. So they'll pass a reciprocal resolution. That's what will finalize that transaction.
And that's Monday?
Correct.
So will we? Yes, sir.
If I may, I have a little further. I've been in contact with the school corporation about this. I talked to Doug a little bit earlier. So they do have the resolution ready. So they would ask that a representative from the town council be present kind of for the signing of their resolution and maybe kind of make something happen, hand over the keys, get a photo. I think Christie, you're planning on being there for this.
That Monday?
Was it this one or the next one?
It'll be this one. Apparently, they're in need of this car fairly quickly if we can get it to them.
I was planning to be there regardless, but I'd love anybody else who wants to join
Anybody that
in.
wants to be there, they're happy. I mean, if everybody wants to go, they'd be happy to have you there. They just want to show recognition for and grateful what, council has proposed to them. And I will have a police officer there already working a security detail for the school there. So Officer Whitaker will be there as well for the photo opportunity. They would love, anybody that wants to be there, they can be there, that's awesome.
What time?
6:30 is the meeting. At the new Palestine Town meeting. I think they kind of switch them around and go from different locations.
Thank you for mentioning that. I haven't been at the administration building.
Yeah, matter of fact, Miles, I had that conversation this morning. He's like, oh, don't forget NPI.
Do you need me to drive the car over there? Just trying to be a helpful guy here.
I think you're on the insurance, right? Actually,
Lights and
I don't know if they're
sirens
gonna have,
on, please.
they want the car over there or not, or if they're just gonna leave it here for now. I think just kind of the getting it done. I can talk to them and we can make arrangements to have it over there. That's not.
Get
a
over there
problem.
for a picture,
Absolutely.
then bring it back. But
Yeah.
either way. Yeah, we'll definitely have somebody there, hopefully quite a few of us, so.
If you guys do know, they would like to know in advance, because I think they're gonna reach out to whoever shows up right in advance, so they kind of know who's gonna be there. So if you do know, let me know in advance or whatever if you can.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
I'll be there. I will be there.
Everybody's gonna be there.
Okay.
Perfect. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Is there anything else? There shouldn't be any
Sorry, Doug, I stole your thunder.
snafus or anything with that. It's pretty simple, right?
Yep, they'll sign their resolution. Your resolution allows the president to sign off. So once Chief probably knows what the title is, you have to sign over the title, but the resolution allows her to do that.
Okay.
Did you ask Doug about who signs the title?
Doug, is it the financial clerk that signs the title for that, or is it the council president?
This would authorize the president. So I think either one could, but the resolution authorizes the president.
I think so. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it
We've
would.
got it here, so
Perfect.
I'll have you sign that after.
Is this not valid until their resolution is passed?
And the statute requires that both units pass substantially identical resolutions to memorialize the agreement for transfer. So once they pass it, that's met the statutory requirements.
Okay.
Okay.
Who's
New
that?
business? Update from Commonwealth Engineers?
Hey.
My name's Al Stong, I'm your project manager on the wastewater project. Our design is complete, we have all permits submitted, and we're on track to go out to bid the project. So what we're looking to do is just solicit financing through the state revolving loan fund. We've requested, I believe, $5 million in loan forgiveness. We're being overambitious, and I'm sure that Cronin and Associates will present their financial information to show you what impacts that budget will have on your rates. As you recall, we had 3 projects. We're taking the wastewater treatment plant improvements project out first. That's what's needed first because your existing facility is overloaded. Once that project is out, constructed, we start to assume additional users. We monitor the collection system. When you have the ability, we can then look to put in the interceptor, which is from the old GEM wastewater treatment plant to your new plant, decommission the GEM facility. Then we can work on the collection system where you have, I believe, 8 lift stations, looking to rework some of those lift stations and reroute some of those lift stations to the interceptor. Any questions on your project?
How long from the start, what are we anticipating for the tenure of the project?
treatment plant improvements project, I anticipate an 18-month construction timeframe.
And then, everything else kind of falls from that, but,
Everything will be pending your financial capabilities
okay,
and performance of the system.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have Insurance renewal.
Jared, are you speaking
Yeah.
towards this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
all of
didn't
us,
have the agenda, so I didn't have to.
Come on up.
Okay.
We're not going to skip over this.
Yeah. Well, good evening. Jared Hall with Cronin Associates, the town's financial advisors. As Al mentioned, there's a wastewater treatment plant project that's, they've designed and, going to go to bid here in April, and the idea being that we obtain financing for that project in June or July through the Indiana Finance Authority. So I've given each of you have two packets. One of them is kind of a plain white cover, and that is, as the accountant, that is your comprehensive rate study. In my experience, you don't want me to go through all of that. I will be happy to, but I give it to you so you can go through it, follow up with me if you have any questions. The other packet looks like this. It's more of a presentation format in which I've pretty much taken the key schedules out of the rate study, and we'll go through that and what's the numbers and the rate impacts of the project. So if you want to have that up in front of you, you go ahead and flip to the first page. Just a little history on your current rates. So your current wastewater rates were adopted back in 2018. Those rates are for your residential customers, which is primarily your customer base. It's $67 a month. You also have a stormwater rate, which was adopted at the same time, and that's $5. And those rates were adopted to support, you have 2016 bonds outstanding. So kind of the similar process, project, was required and through bond financing, and rates were adjusted accordingly. Well, I think it's important as folks on the council or the body that approves rates to understand that there's a statutory, you folks are required to maintain rates of the utility that allows the utility to operate, right? Because when it doesn't operate and things don't get done, we're in a world of hurt. And so those rates, when the code says the rates shall be sufficient to cover kind of three main things. The first is your operation and maintenance, right? That's salaries, that's lights, that's vehicles. It's all the things that keep the plant in operation. The next thing is debt service or bond payments. So that's typically capital, right? It's what we're talking about. It's a $18 million investment in the plant. So rates must be sufficient to cover that. And then also depreciation, because things wear down over time and you have to plan to replace those. You have extensions, replacements, things like that. So when we're looking at developing rates, those are the three kind of real high-level requirements that we have to make sure we cover.
Jared, can I ask a quick question? Do you remember in the back of your mind what our rates were before the 18th increase, the 2018?
The 26 or 2018 increase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it before the 67?
48.
It was 48?
Yeah. I think that sounds right.
Mhm.
And do you remember what the cost of that 2016 improvement to what the total cost of that was?
That plant was 4.2 million, I think.
4.2?
Yeah. Right now it's out. It's a 2017 bond. It's outstanding at 2.8 million. So we paid some down a couple years ago.
But it started at 4.8.
Yeah.
4.2 or 4.8?
4.2.
Sorry,
4.2.
4.2.
Random question. Do we know the last time that we increased it before 48?
No, prior to that, it's when it kind of, in its inception, it was like $28 a month, I think.
Okay.
That was probably back in the 80s.
Okay. Thank you.
So, if you go ahead and flip to the next page, we have updates, so in, our baseline is historical financials, right? And so the good thing is we were able to update with 12/31/2023 information since we're here in February. As you can see, you've got utility plant and service, so that's your total investment. There's no depreciation off of that, that's just kind of total investment in plant. Below that, cash and investment. So you have 5 funds, and I believe Don's recently explained what funds are and how they work. This is separate from the civil town side, but it's the same concept of the buckets. And so primarily, your operation and maintenance fund, that's the fund where everything goes through. That's where your receipts go in, that's where your salaries go out. Below that is a bond and interest fund. That is to pay the bond payments due every 6 months. And the way it works is 1/6 of the next bond payment goes from the operating fund into the bond and interest fund. When the payment's due, the payment is made, it zeroes out, we reset. And so instead of having, it's a way of budgeting effectively, setting it in an escrow on a mortgage, it's kind of the equivalent. So that's the bond and interest fund. The debt service reserve fund, that is a required set of monies that is required to be set aside for the bond covenants. The bondholders, in order for them to buy your bonds, they said, we want to make sure that you set aside 1 year of debt service. So if something happens drastic, you have that money set aside and can only be used to make bond payments. That's an industry standard. And so that $243,000 will pretty much sit there and hopefully make interest.
10,000. 10,000 is one. Quick question on that, Jared.
Yes.
Question got brought up earlier. I think this matures in 2038, so just around the corner. At the end of that maturity, does that money, is that go back to the town? Is that used as the final payment?
Yeah.
What?
So assume no additional debt was issued, right? And we go on our way and we pay that bond until the very end. Yeah, the idea is the last payment, the last year of payments, you could tap into that, right?
Okay.
You could pay it off and then sweep that money into the operating fund. It becomes unencumbered at that point.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
but typically, there's other projects, and it's that amount, the requirement is calculated based on if there's multiple bonds, it's based on the 2 bonds together. So
Correct.
if we were to issue an additional bond this year, that requirement's gonna go up.
Yep.
Because the total annual debt service of the 2 bonds will increase.
Yep. Thank you.
So the next one's the improvement fund. That is your replacements. That's pretty much funded with your capacity and availability fees. So every time a new customer connects to the system, they pay a fee. That money goes directly into that fund, and that's what it's used for. And I'll kind of touch on that here in a little bit. It's more on that fund. And then the stormwater fund, that's where the stormwater receipts go and used for stormwater related projects. And then you can see down below there the 2017 bond. It's just under 2.8 million. The reason it's kind of an odd number is it was a draw bond, and I think there was everything but a little bit was drawn down. That's why it's kind of in a real specific number. Any questions on that? Okay. The next page, and I know it's kind of small here, try to make it as big as I could. This is the cash flow. So we've got 2 years. You've got 2022 and 2023. We start at the top. You can see your operating receipts with wastewater and stormwater. You'll notice that if we just look at wastewater, there's pretty significant increase from 22 to 23. That is 100% attributable to the growth. And I've got a way to quantify, just to show you that, I know that's, Al, working in communities across the state, growth it helps keep everybody's costs down.
Hey, Jared,
Yes.
let me stop you for a minute. Is that supposed to be on this page? And
Yours is cut off, mine is
okay, so theirs is not.
You can have a copy, you want to get your copy?
Don't worry about that, as long as the council has it.
Yeah,
If you have an extra one, I would love for Yvonne to check to make sure that we're all on the update.
She's seen this,
Yeah.
I emailed her,
Yep.
we went through it, but.
Thank you. Yep, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
That looks better.
Now, a question for you,
Yeah.
is that increase normal for a town our size? I mean, I'm asking, there's probably 3 towns out there that meet all the requirements ours do, but increasing that collection by 200,000 in 1 year seems like it's
Well-
indicative to growth.
It is indicative of growth. One of the first communities I worked in is Fishers, Indiana, and I can remember we built a plan, and then we started design on the plan while it was in construction for the next phase. So it just depends on how rapid the growth is and what you have going on. In Northwest Indiana, they have some rapid growth as well. And, you know, your project, we're looking to build for the 5-year scenario of rapid growth. So if you experience rapid growth, we may be looking to start design or start to implement the next phase project rather quickly. Afterwards, we're trying to implement just enough project to keep your rates under control that still allow us to accept the customers.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so at the top there, we got receipts, and then the section below, and I'll be happy to go through each one. I think you all can read, and it's pretty clear what they are, but that's your operations expenses by the different categories. So, yeah, as you would expect, slight increase in that due to, but typically inflation drives a lot of that. The next section below there, you have the non-operating receipts, so that's your interest income. You can see your collection and availability fees. So 23, 240,000, 22 was a big year, 574,000. And that money has gone into that improvement fund. The next section is non-operating disbursements. That's where the bond payments come out for those 2017 bonds. And then we've got plant replacement and improvements, and that is part of the project. That money that's been spent there is primarily like the pre-work, the design, engineer, stuff like that. So you can see we pretty much on the year broke even. You know, we had negative 36,000. That's so we pretty much had a neutral cash flow while making that significant investment in the plant for this project. Any questions on that?
No, so basically $36,000 negative, but invested $917,000 in the prep work already for design and implementation, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome, thank you.
And you can see, if you go to that previous page, you'll actually see that if you look at the bottom, total cash and investments, that change in cash went from $2,660,000 to $2,623,000. So there's, for those of you that look at financial statements, that's how it progresses. All right. So, developing rates, we start with the historical, which we just went through. We then take that information and we do a projection. So the first thing we do is try and project out our operating disbursements. There's a number of techniques and methodologies, but industry standard, you know, talking with management, talking with the engineers, the new project, is there cost savings, is there going to be cost increases depending on the components. So we go through that whole process and we try and project out 3 to 4 years max. Fortunately, I don't have a high confidence level much further than that. I wish I did, because it could be beneficial. But typically we say like a rate study is good for 3 to 4 years. Sometimes they're longer. Sometimes they do last 10 years and everything's fine, but that's really the area that we look at. So what we've done here is taken the test year 2023, we've made adjustments and come up with that pro forma amount, $1.1 million.
So that's basically saying that amount is year 4?
Yeah, 3 or 4, yeah. I think,
So we
I think
will
this is
work
3.
up to that.
Yeah, we should work up to that, that's right. And you'll see, like, for example, salaries and wages. We put in a 5-year annual inflation. A lot of them are inflation. Some of them are, like, you know, chemicals and testing. 2023 was a high year, so we normalize it back, you know, because for whatever reason in 23 it was they need to buy more chemicals, or they stocked up on it, or, you know, different stories there, but, so, yeah, that's right, the 1.1 million, 3 years. If we go to the next page, this is the sources and uses. So what I'm going to present is kind of two scenarios. And so the sources and uses, the top section, it's all pretty much the same until we get to the bottom. But you'll see there, based on Commonwealth has provided their estimate of the project at $18,123,000. That's the physical project itself. Then down below, you see some soft costs, right? You have engineering, and then like legal, financial, issuance costs, things like that. So total estimated uses of funds, $21,323,000. We take that and we say, well, how are we going to pay for all that? So the first thing is, because we're going to go to IFA or SRF, a state agency, and we're going to ask them for grant funds. And we've been successful. I have no control. I always say that, like, fortunately, I don't have any control of what they do, but we do our best, and we've worked with them in numerous engagements and had success. So we do know some of the things that they like to see. The first is your American Rescue Plan funds are being committed to this project, so that $573,000, and those monies have already been spent effectively. They were part of some of that other capital outlay there. We also have $1 million of town funds, and so the idea is those monies come from that improvement fund that I mentioned earlier. And Yvonne and I have talked about it, because I know she wants. Ultimately, we want to preserve the cash position of the utility, right? But we do need to show SRF that the town is putting something in, right, making an investment out of their own, pocket. And that's what those monies are for. We've collected those availability fees for capacity. And the plan is capacity. And so you'll see my note, we've already spent $565,000 of that. So in the numbers you're already seeing, that money's been spent, so it's not like another million on top of what you're seeing here. Okay? So then what happens is, the difference between scenario 1 and 2 is, I ran a model here that if we get a $3 million grant from SRF, we're going to ask for more. But I'd rather start here, and then we're going to ask for more, but I want to kind of set a realistic expectation with everybody. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is no grant. Self-funded. Now, SRF, financing through SRF is a benefit in and of itself. They offer, it's like 2.17 is the interest rate right now for 20-year money. It's as good as you're going to get, even with the AAA rating. So there's a benefit there. But on top of that, if we can get them to, grant fund, or they call it a forgivable loan, that will just help. So basically,
Can you tell me what that rate was again? 2.78? 2.17.
And it's in, so it's all in this packet. There's a ham schedule, there's a whole.
That seemed like a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write it on the easy one.
Yeah, there you go. 2.17%. And it changes every quarter.
Okay.
But again, we don't know what that, if we would get a grant or loan forgiveness, something along those lines.
So what's happening right now?
It could be $5 million.
Could be $5 million. It could be.
In that case, you're having a party.
And everything goes down, right?
Fantastic.
So there's our sources and uses. So what that says is, under each scenario, we would borrow, scenario 1, $16,750,000, or $19,750,000. You go ahead and flip to the next page. This, to me, is where all the magic happens. This is where we take all that information I just went through. We're going to put it all in one place and see what the impact is. Okay? So scenario 1, up there in orange, you'll see it says this is the $3 million grant funded option. So what we have to do is determine what our revenue requirements. How much money do we need to keep the utility going, to pay the debt service, to provide for that depreciation? So at the top, you'll see, or actually, this one's set up a little different, but so you'll see, if you go to the middle, the projected operating and maintenance disbursements, you'll see the 1.123, which is from the previous schedule. So that's our projected O&M. You go down from there under annual debt service. You currently have a $223,000 annual debt service payment on the 17 bonds. The proposed 24 bonds under scenario 1, which we borrow the $16.7 million, the debt service payment on that would be $1,041,000. You look at scenario 2, where we'd have to borrow $19 million, it would be $1.2 million. So it costs you another $180,000 a year. If we jump back up here to the top, you'll see where I have test year wastewater receipts. So pulled right from that income statement, $1.6 million, 1.633. The first adjustment there, it's annualized for December EDUs. And in the more comprehensive packet, we have all the billing data laid out, and you can see how much you billed billed and collected every month. Well, as you know, there's been growth in 2023. So the number that was in January is less than December. So what we do is we look at December, because that's the most recent customer count. We make an adjustment, say, well, this is our new billing standard. That's a $71,000 increase. Had those customers been billed all year, the $1.6 million number would have been closer to 1.7. Okay, so that's our first adjustment. Let's skip that next adjustment real quick, the $325,000. And then the proposed sewer rate increase, that $507,000. So that would be the revenues that we would need. Okay. The $325,000, so EDU's under construction. So we're allowed, or we can utilize potential growth or new development if it's real and tangible and occurring. Okay. The idea that a developer is looking at a parcel, it's a bit of a stretch to the bondholders, right? To IFA, to SRO. So if you go down to the bottom there, under Note 1, there's kind of three main projects, and I'm sure you all are well aware of. But so Willow Ridge subdivision is 68 EDUs. The Bukovic development. I'm sorry. Equivalent dwelling unit. So a house, a customer. Al could probably engineer it up and maybe more dynamic, but. 2.3 people.
It's also, whenever you look at what they do for a living, it's a way that they can make it how normal people would talk about rates. Instead of saying, we have this massive factory and it's going to use this much, you can now equivalent that to a house. Right. So instead of one EDU, it would be 17 EDUs. Right. So you know how to multiply it so that it makes sense to a normal person doing that.
What's it stand for again? EDU?
Equivalent
dwelling unit?
Yeah.
And before that, they measured it by gallons.
But there's also another one. There's EDUs and what's the other one?
ERU?
ERUs.
Residential unit?
Yes. So those, I'm pretty sure those mean the exact same thing.
Yeah.
ERUs for stormwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't use that.
So when in your, basically it's the equivalent
Projected
of a household.
growth.
In your case, this is all residential, basically, but like Thomas said, if you were building a factory out there, let's say, we would convert that into EDUs to say that's 100 EDUs. Now we're talking apples to apples across the board. So
Thank you.
So Willow Ridge, 68 homes. Bukovic development, 282 apartments. And then the Ashton Acres Senior Living Facility would be 55. So that's a total of 405. That 405 online at $67 a month, 12 months, is $325,000 at the top there. Okay? That's the assumption in this scenario. I talked with Jim. We had a conversation about where are we at with some of these projects. I know Willow Ridge is moving right along. The COVID, it's been approved. Everybody in town knows that. They're working through kind of getting some of their stuff sorted out. And then Ashton Acres, same thing. It's just a matter of timing, right? So we have a pretty high confidence level of those projects occurring. So I put them in here. So assuming all of that, if you basically go down to scenario 1, you would need a 25% increase or $83.75. Scenario 2, no grant funding, obviously would require more revenues, be 37% or $91.79. The table down below there, where it says development impacts, what I'm trying to show there is if you go to like the $86.43, that's what the rate would be if Willow Ridge doesn't build out. So we don't get those 68 EDUs. Obviously, if you look down at Bakovic, right, if Bakovic doesn't build out, it's $94.47. Kind of that illustration is to show like how these developments do help. They help spread the cost over, everybody. So just thought that was just something to put in there that like shows kind of the sensitivity analysis, especially a community this size that 282 unit development like can really help sharing the burden. Having said that, really SRF, in order to really provide grant funding, the rates need to be at $85. The way they look at it is, you kind of have to, I'll say.
You mean below 85?
So it has to be at least $85.
Or above?
Or above.
So I got a question for you too. You say build out. There's a difference between building out and occupied.
Yeah.
So, I mean, until somebody actually pays that bill, you don't see that benefit.
Then you don't see the money, that's
right. So can you speak to timing based on construction and these extra funds and when you would recommend rate increases to go into effect and how that all plays out? Because there's a process here.
Yeah, and if we're at the end questions. So,
perfect.
Yeah.
We're at the right place.
So the process is Al and his team has planned, they've designed, they're ready to go out to bid, so we can finalize that $18 million number. Right, and once we have that, then we will take that and we will go to SRF. So right now we're kind of in a holding pattern because their year runs from July 1 to June 30. So they're at the tail end of their year. So July 1 starts a new process in which they award the grant. That's when you find out who's going to get grants and financing package. So we're like in the process of discussing with them, and like it will be later, probably May, probably June, till we really hear where New Palestine scores, what financing package they have to offer, and then the plan is to close in July. I mean, assuming it's an optimal financing plan, you all would have to approve it and stuff like that. But as far as rates going in place, you will have to have adopted the rates before we can close on the financing.
Adopting rates without the proposed things bringing in income yet. So how does that affect your?
So what we would need to do is the analysis to make sure that you can cover the payment to pay the bills, right?
Right.
And that's part of. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces here, and some of it I'm hoping through the next couple months we obtain more confidence. We maybe start seeing dirt work moving out there, or at these other communities. I know, was it Ashton?
Willow Ridge.
Willow Ridge. I'm sorry. That's what they're finishing up infrastructure, so construction should get started right away. I mean,
They said permitting probably here in June, so.
and we do, so not everything is on a margin because we are required, I guess I didn't talk about that. You're required to have bond coverage. So what does that mean? So for every dollar of debt service that you have to pay, they require you to have $1.25 available to make the payment. Okay? Typically the 25 cents, that's a minimum. But that 25 cents is your depreciation allowance, your extensions and replacements. It's not encumbered to a specific known expense. So what I'm saying is there's a little buffer in there, right? But we have to have that in order to close on the bonds.
Because in theory, some of these won't come to fruition until after the plant would be built.
One of the ways I've seen this addressed is you can
Yeah, we can phase it in. The other option is we can actually defer payment. So we don't have to start paying principal on the bonds until a year after completion of construction. So if you started, what's your timeline on that? 18 months. So
we'll work in June or July, be done probably in what?
December of 25. So 26, like, I think June is when you're paying, June of 26 would be, so what we do is we'll build the cash flow model to make sure that it all cash flows, right, with that build out
Right.
and stuff like that. So, I'm trying, and Devon and I, we had this conversation today, I'm trying to find a balance, right,
Yep.
to keep the rates as, if there was no issue, then we'd say, well, let's assume no growth, but you see what happens to the rates there.
But even we do a tier approach, we need to be at that $85 to qualify for
I think-
certain things.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that has to be the start of the tier, is what I'm hearing, right?
No, it doesn't have to be the start of the tier. No, that we just, as long as they're adopted and they're going into effect within a reasonable time. You can
Okay.
adopt them 20 years from now or whatever, right? But
Fair enough.
They're in place. My only concern about that is, and it's obvious, but like if we don't start billing it, we don't start collecting the money. Therefore, we don't have the resources.
Well, I hear you. I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah.
if we need to hit this mark in order to qualify for this.
Right.
But there's some wiggle room in all of that, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what, like, one of the challenges with a growing community is it's kind of a moving target as things
Yeah.
develop, as new projects come along, and so we do our best to understand the timing of these projects and when they're going to come into the system and generate cash flow.
Do we know how many EDUs were added in 2023 from 2024?
Let me see. In this comprehensive
It's cool. It's
Should
just,
be.
It's just like 3 pages. No big
Making
deal.
him read it.
would be billing information. So, it's not quite, yeah, it's EDUs. So January, if you go to page 5 of it, of that packet. I'm always happy to go through these typically, yeah.
I think we're okay
There's
to
a
not
lot
go through
there.
the whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. So page 5, this is dollars and custom, and basically bill count by user class by month. So it has a lot of good information. You can really see in January of 23, you were billing $130,000 a month. We look at December, it increased $12,000 a month, right? So we're at 142,000. Go down to that bottom table, you went from basically 1,574 bills to almost 1,737. So it's almost 200 EDUs because they all came in the residential class.
Yeah, so there's 160-ish EDUs netted in a additional 200,000. Yeah, an additional 200,000 in revenue-ish. I'm rounding.
12
Yep.
times, yeah.
Okay. So if we're expecting the same thing, and then any additional growth from there, got it. Thank
Right.
you.
And Jared, maybe something, I don't think it's ever too early to start thinking about long-term planning. Historically, we haven't adjusted rates until there's been a need, and then it's been a large adjustment. And talking about the concept of tiered rate increases, I think at some point we should start possibly considering some minimal annual increase so that you're building a little bit of a reserve so that the next time that there's a need, it isn't as much of an ask. So I just, I'd rather get ahead of it instead of be behind it and chasing it. So just something that at some point, maybe we should think about being a little proactive.
There's plenty of communities that take that approach, the proactive versus reactive.
Let's emphasize this. This is a need, right, Al?
Unless you want the sewage on the ground, it's a need.
It's a
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
So,
But it's like anything in your budget, you anticipate a roof in 30 years, a hot water heater in 10 years, or whatever. There are certain items you're going to have to plan for that we can't set an exact number, but anything is better than nothing. So if we built in, when this is all completed or in the process, something towards the next need, then we're gonna be in a better position than if we didn't.
I think what we need to do is ensure that we're visiting this annually to look at our run rates, right? To see what we spent, what we brought in, and decide, because it may not, we make this massive 25%, 30% increase now, that may not need another increase, but we do need to revisit it so we don't go 6 years
To
and then
adjust, yeah.
drop it 30%. If we were doing a small incremental 3% every year, we wouldn't be in the situation, we probably would have more into it. So I think that's the approach that we need to look at when we do this, is make sure that we identify that it is a big increase, right?
Yeah.
And that's gonna impact the town, but hopefully the other pieces we're talking about with the EDUs and continual growth here, we can curb that with
And that
some active planning annually.
That's right, and any additional growth beyond that should help, I hesitate to say it, but defer the need, right? So to your
Yeah.
point, the analysis might show, the annual analysis might say, well, look, we're doing fine, but we've had growth and the system can support it. Therefore, instead of doing it every 3 or 4 years, it may be able, that these rates can sustain longer, right? Like, don't quote me on that, I know. But like, that's the idea, right? With a community that's, growing.
Yeah.
That's also a possibility.
Do you have a projection? I seem to remember in a previous conversation, non-town growth for whom we serve. Do we have any, is there a county connection or
Yeah, what was the term for it? It was like,
Well, we talked about, like I said, the regional plan, but that's still out there.
Phase 2,
As part of this project, we scored second in the state for small communities with the SRF.
what does that mean?
That means that we're second in line for money.
Okay.
And the way that you score is you include green and sustainable infrastructure, you take people who are on septics, and you take off septics and provide sewers, regionalization. Part of that was there were areas in the county that have contacted the town in the past and said, can you service us? So we looked at those areas that Yvonne and Jim provided us that were very close to our existing sewers, and we extended some lines to these areas. That was just as much to put us at a high ranking on a scoring system so that we can get grant money as it was to provide service and to pick up additional customers. The thought at the time also was that the county had these American Recovery Act funds, and that maybe they could chip some money in as well. So we do have some county growth, but the county growth, putting the infrastructure in, is going to cost more than the revenues that you're going to receive to service the county, unless you have some subsidization for it.
Have we had any conversations with the county on that?
Well, we did, but subsequently, the $6 million that we were hoping to get kind of went to a private company, 9 Star. That kind of facilitated that project that's up there on 200 West and State Road 70, which there's a lot of us disgruntled about it, but it's done, so.
Mm-hmm.
so those other phases obviously is not included in this. Is there come a time in which those are outdated and unreasonable because we're looking at a lot of money and a lot of rate increases for this equates less than half of your proposed budget for the whole 3 phases, correct?
Correct, but keep in mind, your existing plant is 0.4 million gallons per day. This new plant will be 1.5 million gallons per day. So we'll be able to take on 3 times the amount of customers as long as we can get the flow to us. So you can increase your revenue by 3-fold. Now, we're not gonna be able to get 3-fold the flow to us without doing intermediate fixes. So, but what we need to do is we need to get this facility in place because your existing facility is overloaded. So we put the facility in place, we have the ability to increase our revenues a subdivision build up over here, we may have to do an intermediate fix of a lift station or something. Nobody can, you can't afford to build for a threefold increase on 1/3 of the customer base. So we build the plant first, and then we just work our way to it.
Okay.
So the next action for us is,
I don't think there's any action from you guys at this point. I think being the new council, we want to make sure you all had the information, right? I don't think, right now.
There's one
Oh,
outstanding
okay.
item. Last year, we had identified the opportunity to incorporate a solar field at the wastewater plant. So the Biden infrastructure recovery bill, is that what it's called?
Bipartisan infrastructure law.
Yeah. So the 5 years of money that he's provided, you can receive a 30%, at minimum, a 30% cost subsidy off of the cost of incorporating solar. So there have been companies that have been making their tours of communities to try to get people to do this. Where you see benefit is at your water and wastewater facilities, because those are high energy users. And in the state of Indiana, if you use solar and you put it back on the grid, you sell it back at wholesale, not retail. So what you want to do is you want to put these at your facilities that are high energy users and use your own electricity. We went through and performed a study to show that, in essence, over a 20-year time frame, it would be a $200,000 to $300,000 benefit to you to incorporate a solar field
per year.
over the 20-year loan.
Okay.
Yeah. So over the 20-year loan, it would provide you, essentially it would provide you with a small grant if we were to incorporate the solar field at a treatment facility. So we had identified that was tabled under the previous council. We recommend that we incorporate it. I think Jared can speak to the financial aspect of it, and maybe Jim can speak to what his recommendations are. We probably will need some direction here in the near future if you want us to incorporate it into the design.
Before we got into that, in that cost analysis and design you guys did we build in, I know that those solar fields do require a lot of maintenance. So is that built in there for that? I mean, usually there's somebody who comes out and services those and stays on top of that. That may be an additional person that we have to hire for the town, or is that something that we have to contract out? Is that cost associated with that as well?
It's not.
Okay.
I can provide council with the cost analysis, and then we can look at that. I'm not familiar with what maintenance is required, and we would probably have to look and see what those companies, what's required, what those companies charge, and build that into the analysis.
I think that'd be smart to do, because that $200,000 to $300,000 we could save over that time period might be eaten up and might end up costing us money. So I think an analysis of that would probably be pretty good.
I'll ask our electrical individual to see if he can incorporate that.
Yeah, I mean, I start thinking pieces, parts, people
It's a lot.
add up pretty quick.
I wasn't familiar that there was a lot of operation and maintenance. I thought they just sat there.
I think there is quite a bit. When I was digging into that, from the original proposal that you guys walked us through, that was one of the things that I went back and looked at. I know it's expensive to get it, but then I do know that there are costs to maintain it. Obviously, you're not gonna see those in the first 2 or 3 years. Everything's great, your new car runs awesome, but once you get 100,000 miles on it, then you start running into some of those additional costs.
That's a good point. I'll check into it for you.
Thank you.
So do you have a recommendation on a timeline based on,
Yeah.
even if we don't start it, but need to put these rate increases in place so that you can communicate? Do you have a timeline on that?
So April, we'll have our bids, is that when?
I think what we will look to do is we'll have some further communication with SRF
Yeah.
and let them know that we're ready to go out to bid in April. So if we go out to bid in April, we'll advertise in April. It'll typically be a 6 to 8 week bid period for the size of
it's kind of like we have to get the project costs, we gotta get the financing package, so, yeah, we would probably have, depending on the bids, the package, I'm thinking like June or July. I need all the numbers to update this report, and then it's not scenario 1 and 2, right? It's, here it is, right? And it's more definitive. So, yeah, probably mid-year, July, June, July, August, that time period,
Okay.
once we get more fixed numbers in the report. But we tried to be conservative and show you, you know, no grants, right? Or 3 million, and if it's even more, then of course the numbers go down.
Right.
I like to have more.
More grants?
Yeah, can we
Yeah,
We'll-
do that.
We'll work on it, yeah. Well, and May come down, we might have you guys come talk to them. Sometimes we get to that point, like, you know, getting the town there, but we'll go through the process.
That, if that's a viable option, that honestly would help, by all means, like,
Yeah. No, and we definitely will. It's a bit like buying a car, you know, you gotta go through the process. With
Yep.
them. So, like Al said, I think we're gonna start early with them and try and get them to commit sooner than later, hopefully.
yeah. I'll say that I appreciate all the time you guys have put into this. I know we're a new council, show up, and then we start asking a ton of questions and, you know, trying to do our homework as fast as possible. So we appreciate you guys working with us through that and putting it in a way that we can ensure that we can share. One of the things that I'd be interested in is, can we get an electronic copy of this, and then would it be beneficial to post this on our website, just so the town can see it? The rate study, yeah. I mean, it's a PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's a.
I don't know that many people would go out and really dig through it, but I think it kind of shows the situation we're in, right? So I don't think anybody up here wants to raise rates by 25%, but we also don't want something worse than that to happen.
Yeah, Al said sewer in the streets or something.
Yeah, something like
let's
that.
not put that in the.
Yeah, we'll leave that out.
Yeah, and likewise, if you have any follow-up conversations, most of you probably have my contact, I know you're on, you know, feel free to email, call, whatever. I'm happy to answer. I'd rather you guys be in the know, you make the right decision, you know, for you guys. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
The other one on new business is insurance renewal. Yvonne, did you want us to,
Yep, I actually don't have to say anything, we've got the bull under.
okay?
Blaine and Cheryl. I'll cheer you on from here.
No, thank you, thank you.
Actually, Cheryl does all the work, show up.
You're the face.
But this is good.
House
You know,
before
we
you get home,
appreciate
get to
it.
bed.
So
He's had a
that-
long
Did.
It's actually
See you later.
went
Thank
down a
you.
little, mainly because of the workers' compensation. Took a big.
What's that, Seward
dive.
Street?
Just
She's
to
already
quickly explain
texted me.
why that happened. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, there was a really large claim in town with an employee. And workers' comp has what they call a modification factor. So every year, the way I describe that is a modification of 1.00 would be an average of all the types of business in that category. Well, before it was probably about 160, I can't remember, you know.
It was high, the modification factor
It was about 60-70% more than the standard. Well, now it's 0.86 because we've had some really good experience in the last 3 years. So hopefully that trend will continue. We did send this out to several companies. Some declined, and I think you might have got the quote there from Selective, which was about 10,000 more. But if this trend, a good trend continues, then there's always more options. Of course, if you had bad trends, that's not so good. So that's the biggest difference, and I think we got the sheet with all the property property amounts, and then also there's another section which we just got the new parts in today called inland marine, and that's like backhoes and snow plows and sewer cameras, and there's a list probably over 100 items that's on that. So the package would include the inland marine, the property, and the general liability and the police professional liability, so there's a police issue. And then there's a $4 million umbrella over and above the $1 million that comes in the package. And the cyber liability. Cyber's become a big deal. Fortunately, that's state level this year, but I can tell you, everybody says it won't happen to me, but I can give you 2 or 3 examples of, I know one situation, the client, they got a bill, and they said, well, wire transfer, and they said, well, the same odds, wire transfer. Well, a month later, their supplier says, well, where's the money? Well, we sent it to you. It looked like it was totally legit email, and it wasn't, it was fake, so you have to be on top of that. There is some coverage in here for that, but Yvonne would never do that, right?
I will
Or
not do
Jenny, either
that.
one.
Actually, I've been getting all kinds of fake bills
Yep,
and,
all the
you
time.
know, Geek Squad and Best Buy and Police Pay this and, you know.
You're always getting something sitting.
We're always getting
Yeah.
something, so I'm really kind of hyper aware of that. But all it takes is one time when you get an email from somebody to say, hey, you know, change my account number on my bank paperwork, and, you know, I now want to go on to this bank, and if it looks legit and you're not paying attention, you might take that as, you know, a true email. But we've made a policy that if anybody wants to change their account number, they have to come in here and talk to us in person. So that way we can avoid issues like that with the employees, but it happens with businesses as well. You know, you get an email that looks really legit, and all of a sudden, you might fall for the change that they're asking for. So that cyber insurance is so important.
Yeah, and this fortunately at state level, which I was sort of surprised.
I was
'cause it's
surprised
going
at
up.
that
We
too.
had one client just had a nightmare this year, but they were a warehouse operation that sent a lot of stuff to a lot of places, and it's totally wrecked their system until we got it straightened out. But there is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week number in here that you can call if you have something happen, and they'll guide you through it. Hopefully you don't. And also in here I've got the identification codes for the cars and police cars and everything. So this is pretty much everything. Yvonne usually takes care of the policy and the bill and everything. So any questions? Now, if you want, I'll just throw this out. If you want to at some point think about doing an insurance committee, I'd be happy to come in and go through everything in great detail if you just want to understand what all's covered and not covered. One thing I might mention on the selective quote, they said, well, they had $1 million earthquake. Well, this has got earthquake for every building, and you've got far more than $1 million. I'd say you've got maybe closer to 6 or 8 million in property. So it is a 10% deductible. So try not. Hopefully, we won't have one.
Try not to have
It's there. So. If there's no questions, I'll give this to Yvonne and
Thank you.
be on the way. And I'll tell you what, I've got each one a card. If you ever have a question on it, you can feel free to call my cell phone.
Thank you.
And it doesn't have to be during business hours, because
Thank you, Bill.
I'm usually just like playing golf and watching TV.
No.
And
Thank you.
Bill lives in New Palestine.
Yeah, I live
Yes.
right down in Sunrise Lake, so it's not.
Thank you, Bill.
very
Thanks,
far.
sir.
And of course, you got those handsome notebooks, pens, too.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you,
I'll
sir.
give this to Yvonne, and we'll get out
Thank you,
of your
Bill,
way.
appreciate it.
Is there action we have to take on it?
Yeah. That was convenient.
Sure.
So Yvonne,
Be careful, Bill.
do we need to take
Thank you.
action on this tonight?
I think you might wanna either approve the bill or not, but if
It's,
you
I know
don't
it's
wanna-
due March 14th,
Yeah, we've got a little time, but it's up to
Do the
you.
20th.
the 20th? March 20th.
But do we have to approve the policy or just the bill?
Just the bill.
Well,
Well,
essentially,
I think we
no.
need both, actually.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For the policy.
And Doug, I mean, is there anything else that they have to do? I don't think they do.
Is one of those autos you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, one of them will
policy
get
that
fall
you're gonna
off.
be meeting, so
Yeah, you can do a credit for that.
Thank you for coming and speaking with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to table this until next meeting. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
I just want some more time to look at this.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is legal updates.
No new legal updates. Our attempt at settlement with Mr. Jones, it did not progress, and so we will continue to litigate that matter. And then just working with staff on development issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Department reports. Town manager?
I have one thing, Ashton Acres, we're getting real close on their approval for the apartments there. And one thing that we went through planning is the entry drive on that property, we want to move that as far south as we can. Well, that won't happen and probably until the property to the south of it develops. So I might need help either from Bill or Doug to get a letter of condition on approval. So I know that the town's protected when the property either to the south develops, and that they will give the town an easement for that piece of ground or the entryway. We want to turn that into a public or shared use. Is that correct?
Yeah, right away, yeah.
Yep.
Well, and just thinking out loud, obviously, it goes without saying, you want to find a happy medium. You want the entrance as far away from 52 as you can, but also you have to be mindful of the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And in a perfect world, excuse me, Dragon Drive would be a good place if it lined up. Excuse me.
Need some water here, Bill?
All right, thanks.
Not that much spit in it. Come on.
It's just half backwash. Other than that, it's good.
We're okay. Get all choked up over it.
But, yeah, so Greg or Doug or Bill, if you guys could help me out with that.
Would they be interested in doing some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, but divided street, you know, put something there from the railroad track too, so that you don't have people turning left and right. That way you can kind of negotiate traffic.
That would be, yeah, that might be a little more difficult.
Okay.
We could get a ride in or ride, you know,
I
yeah.
believe the plan now is, when you look at the plans on it, if the developer would donate, or we could purchase right away on the entrance of that, that would allow us in the future, when that property develops on the corner, to, whoever the developer is, make them establish a drive, and then we could vacate that drive and hook those two together to make the Dragon Drive and the new entrance align, which is ultimately what you want safety-wise. So by donating that or purchasing right away there, where their drive is proposed at, that kind of locks us in when that property develops to the south to be able to kind of force that on the new developer.
Got it.
So I think that's what he's going for.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of, there's been some interest in another drive this last week for the property to the south, and we just want to make sure that we get our ducks in a row so that doesn't happen.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I don't have a lot. The only thing that came across my emails today was that we were approved for a $4,200 grant for railroad crossing. And essentially that's just the 3 crossings that we have in town at Mount Comfort, Jim Road and Depot Street. They're gonna come in and restripe all the stop bars and crossbucks and all that stuff. And that is, no out of pocket for the town. It's 100% funding through NDOT, so.
Nice.
I like that.
Should be done this summer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Money is good money.
Always looks good, too.
Yeah,
Okay,
Thank you for that.
that's all I got.
thanks. Bob?
I was gonna talk about the car, which we already got, that's great. Also wanna kinda educate the council, in 2019, we started our canine program. So we're planning on possibly this summer doing a golf outing to try to do a fundraiser to continue the efforts of keeping monies for our canine program. That dog was completely purchased through donations. It wasn't any tax dollars that got raised for doing it, so my canine officer has, decided to spearhead, possibly in July at the Links Golf Course, to try to raise more money. We pay our vet bills, we pay training, we pay equipment out of this, so, pup dog's probably about 5, 6 years old now, still solid, but eventually that day's gonna come when you're gonna have to replace that dog. And this dog has been phenomenal for the town. We have pulled more drugs, more bad people, tracked them down with the use of this dog. And I wanna continue this program because I think it's a great thing for our town. So if anybody's interested, we'd love you to play. If you wanna volunteer, if you wanna be a donator, Cronin Associates already volunteered.
Yeah, they're gonna write you a big check.
That's what I heard. You guys may start seeing something coming out, some flyers and stuff. So anybody wants to join, be part of it, it's great. I applaud Officer Batten for taking this initiative to keep our canine program moving forward. And he's already got a lot of offers to help. So if anybody wants to play, help, donate, whatever, it'd be great.
It's July 11th.
July 11th is what he's
I
got.
think it's gonna be like a 9 o'clock start roughly.
I'm
the
gonna
links.
I'm gonna reach out to him. I would love to be involved. I talked to Sergeant Wally already. Yvonne told me about it, so I'll reach out to them. I'd love to help there and push to make sure that that's extremely successful. So
I
thanks for
appreciate
him to take the lead there, but I'll reach out to him after this and let him know I'm willing to help and we can set it up.
Yeah, I told him I'm not a very good golfer, but I'd be happy to go help whatever you needed, so.
I can't wait to show you how good I golf.
And the more the merrier. I think we're trying to get as many teams as possible. I feel like, it's, you do certain fundraisers, but when you have a puppy dog involved, everybody wants to participate.
That's not the cute puppy
Yeah,
dog.
I mean, so in 2019, we did bowling, we did GoFundMe's. I mean, we worked our butts off to get that dog in 2019, and with a lot of help from the community, we have money, and we've got some money in reserve right now, but we need to keep that built up so it doesn't get to pay. So if we can maybe start doing this every year, I think this is a great opportunity for the police department, and maybe it'll even grow to not just one dog, but 2 dogs in 10, 20 years from now, when I'm gone, but, we start planning now.
Yeah, I think I know somebody who runs a pretty successful annual golf outing, so I'll contact them and have them help us.
That'd be great, I appreciate that. So,
Maybe we could expand it to dogs and drones.
That's what I was gonna try to push. They want a drone. We gotta get them a drone.
There you
I want
go.
the one that they could talk.
with a spotlight.
Yeah, spotlight, and that they could talk. I was excited talking to the deputies about that.
So, and that's really all I have tonight, council, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yvonne?
I want to thank you guys for listening to me yak on about funds and, giving me the opportunity to try to teach you guys a few things about this. And I appreciate all your interest in that and the questions you're asking and the way you're thinking along with the money side of, the job that we all have. So I appreciate that. Other than that, I don't have anything to add today.
Well, thank you for the time that you took to spend explaining all this to us and putting up with our interruptions.
It'll work out.
Next is public comments. 5 minutes, any topic?
Thank you. Chris Warmont, Cedar Creek Estates. I just have a couple comments about the presentation from Commonwealth. Some concerns that I have about the discussion as it has presented. One of the things that he said was that we are currently at 0.4 million gallons a year. And the proposal is for 1.5 million gallons per year. I heard that right, correct?
No, we're at 400,000 gallons a day. They're going to 1.5 million.
A day.
Million gallons.
Oh, day, okay. So 0.4 million
400,000.
Which is 0.4 million, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so 400,000 gallons per day. And then the new capacity is
1.5 million.
0.5 million.
Yeah.
Which is essentially 4 times. That's 4x. So, just listening to that, it's like, okay, so we're considering increasing our sewage capacity by a factor of 4. Just seems a little, yeah, there's a need, but what is that need? Is it really 4x? So, my concern there is this over-reliance on experts. We have to be careful about over-reliance on experts as local, as government officials, whether they're local or state or federal. We got a Supreme Court justice that can't even define what a woman is because she's not a biologist. So it's that kind of thing that I'm concerned about overall, that we have to be careful about over-reliance on experts. So that's my challenge to you guys. 4x seems a bit excessive. So that's all I want you to think about.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Chris. Our council has been in some meetings about Commonwealth from other areas, so we are trying to be very proactive in what we rely on. Anyone else? Okay. Council.
Yvonne, I want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing. I was astonished how upset you got over arguing a $5 bill. That makes me feel good. I feel like you really crunch these numbers. You guys really crunch these numbers and take a lot of care and pride in your job. So thank you for explaining all that to us earlier. It was a bit overwhelming, but it's.
I expect that, and come and see me with questions, but also trust that I do follow the $5.
Yeah.
Fix it.
I think that's all I have. Commonwealth's presentation was informative. I appreciate Crone being here and talking to us. As I told you guys earlier, I had a meeting with Greenfield, talking about their wastewater expansion that they're doing. Theirs is obviously a lot bigger than ours. But I was reassured from the mayor and the head of their wastewater plant that everything they've encountered so far has went well. So that makes me feel a little better about who we're dealing with. I know we've all trying to do our homework on all this. It's a lot to take in. None of us are sewage experts, but we'll try to do the best we can to get the information we need.
Thank you. Ethan?
Yeah, just a couple things. At our last meeting, we talked about kind of divvying up our kind of the commissions and boards that we are appointing, and so I'm enjoying getting the chance to talk with RDC. Some of those individuals who've been faithfully serving in RDC, I'm continuing those this week, so I have a couple more appointments. So looking forward to kind of moving ahead as a council those appointments, because we are working hard at making sure that those teams want to continue to serve and that they understand kind of that responsibility, because we want people understanding serving this town is an important thing, meetings, showing up, accessibility, all of those pieces. So I've enjoyed those conversations with RDC thus far, and we'll continue them. Also, I'm going to start on the first Fridays, starting next month. I'm going to just kind of be available at Tony D's. I know we can't all be at the same place at the same time, and in circumstances like that, to just welcome the town. If there's any particular conversations anybody in our town would like to have with a council person, I'd welcome anybody else to join me, or at least one to join me. But so I'll share, the idea is every first Friday to be at a local place in town and just be available for our town, listen to them, kind of learn their perspective, try to hear what they're concerned about and what's going on from their perspective in New Pal. And I just want to receive that. And so the first Friday in March that morning at 8:30. And I'll be there for about an hour. I'll be at Tony D's in March, and I'll, again, communicate that in the upcoming meetings. But that's something I'm going to try to establish and be a part of moving forward, and would invite a council person to join me whenever you're free to have some listening time with our town. And finally, I would like us to find a way to spotlight our schools once a month, maybe build those bridges with your, I guess with your blessing. I would like to work with Craig Smith at the admin building in the schools and just say, hey, how can we celebrate what the kids in our schools, what the staff in our schools are doing in a more formal way here at our council meetings, to highlight them and just work with him to build that bridge. And so I don't know if we do that at the first meeting of the month or the second meeting of the month, but I would like to implement that within our council meetings at some point.
I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
Would you like me to start those conversations with Craig to just see what that would look like and go from there?
Yeah,
I do, yeah.
Yeah, what's it look like? How are we gonna do it? What's all that? Yep.
Okay, I will do so.
Do we have to go through the formal voting?
Nope.
Okay. Just want to do it right.
That's
Thank
it.
you for contacting the RDC, and Yvonne and Jim had told us about a consultant too that can come in and educate each board and commission so that we can operate properly and work closely together with the council. Chad?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have quite a few. I know we're running long, but you guys are starting to get used to that. So, Ryan, thank you for going out and walking the current plant in Greenfield. Appreciate you donating your time and reporting back things that you learned in that process, doing that additional research. So, thank you very much there. Unfortunately, we talked a lot about having a proclamation for Mr. Haggerty. He's no longer with us, but that is definitely something that I would like to do. I think everybody on the council appreciates all the donations he's made to the police department. So Jenny, after this, I want to schedule some time for you and I to work on getting that proclamation done and then communicating that to his family. His services are Friday if anybody wants that information. Yvonne is going to share it with us. But I definitely want to make sure that we get that there and honor him for his selfless sacrifice to the town, especially our police department. So I also want to call out Deputy Brady. Pretty decent write-up recently about his work on the crash scene investigation. Am I messing that up? Okay. It was cool because Terry and I got to go spend some time and get to meet the deputy. So thanks in advance, Chief, for letting us do that. But he was coming in from basically doing that crash investigation all night, right? And it's cool to see that the county has a situation like that and can tap a resource within our town, one of our employees, one of our deputies that can do that. So first off, thank you to him for all of his work there, and to you, Chief, for making sure that we provide opportunities for them to get that additional training and become useful to the community.
Thank you.
So I'll reach out to him and thank him for that as well. We talked about putting this proposal online, as much of it as we can. I think as we start to get questions, having that information out there might be helpful. I think the town's going to ask a lot of questions and trying to provide them with as much information as possible so that they can understand the decisions that we're making and why we're making them. And then we already hit it, but Yvonne, thank you for the continual educational university you hold for me on a regular basis. I know it's the light of your day, and I'll continue to do that, so you're welcome. That is all I have.
Thank you. Bill?
I hope I can talk. I want to welcome Dry Bones Mud House to our business community. If you're not aware, Jim, what's the building address? Is that
42,
no,
Over 42.
20?
yeah, no.
It's gotta be about 20. Gotta be 18.
No, it's not.
Has to be an even number because it's on the north side of the street.
Yeah,
Oh,
Give me a second.
18.
So confident, you almost have.
Oh, it's
Okay,
30.
if you're looking for a road mark, my house, right straight across the street, first floor, they recently opened, and again, welcome to the business community, and I hope that they do very, very well. That's all.
All right. Well, everybody said about everything I wanted to say. It was on my list, so thank everybody for your work on this council, and I just, we certainly research what we need to, just to operate this town. So, I guess with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We'll second that motion.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion adjourned to